So if you're a business owner, one thing you want to be really careful about is zoning bylaws for where you're locating your business. For starters, what are bylaws? Bylaws are kind of like sub-laws or side laws, and they're generally set up on a municipal basis. So there'll be laws that apply to a certain town or city or rural municipality that don't apply outside of that region. And now typically those municipalities have zoning bylaws. Now zoning bylaws are those kind of sub-laws that apply to zoning for property, where you can only have certain types of businesses or properties in certain areas. So think, for example, like in a residential area, that area might be zoned for single family dwellings only. So they can't have multi-unit apartment buildings built there. And now these zoning bylaws also apply to businesses. So certain businesses can only operate in certain regions of a municipality, certain neighborhoods, or even in certain buildings. And so this is important because you don't want to start a business and open a physical location in your town or your city, and then later find out that the area is not zoned for that type of business or for that type of facility, and then you might be subject to fines or penalties or be forced to close the business and move it elsewhere. I have seen that before, and I'll give you some examples here. But just for starters, for example, I have an office, I use office space. I just rent a room in an office here in my city, and this particular office space is in an area that is only zoned for services. So you can't have a product-based business in my office. We did have someone one time who wanted to rent some space in the building to sell jewelry, but that's considered retail. They wanted to sell products, and so the city would not allow that because this area and this building are not zoned for that. They're only zoned for service-based businesses. And another example, I had a friend who actually had an automotive shop. It was for auto glass repair and detailing and things like that. And he opened up this shop actually pretty close to my office in my city, and later realized that it wasn't zoned for that type of business. So he ended up having to close down the business and move elsewhere. So that's, that can be a major headache, especially if you've done renovations to the facility and moved in equipment and things like that, even put up signage. So you want to be careful that when you're looking for a facility for your business, that the facility matches the type of business that you're going to do, and that it's also in an area that is zoned for that type of business. I did have another friend who had a painting business, and he would do this painting just from his house and his garage. But the type of paint that he was using was quite a strong chemical. And, with his residential property, that wasn't zoned for commercial industrial type of work. So this chemical was actually quite toxic, and if the neighbors are breathing that in, that's an issue. So what he was doing was not, his house wasn't properly zoned to do that. So you want to be careful with that too, so that you're not disrupting neighbors. Obviously you're not going to create like a manufacturing warehouse next to a bunch of houses, or you're not going to be able to start a restaurant or a clothing store out of your apartment in a rental building. So you want to be really careful with that and check with your municipality just to make sure that the location and the facility are suitable for the type of business that you're going to open. And if you're not going to open a facility, you just want a home-based business, the same thing. You can't, open any type of business you want out of your home. It will depend a little bit. Certain ones are maybe obvious and it's easy. If you just want to be like a graphic designer or something like that, it's probably not going to be an issue. But, something like a daycare, it might depend. It might depend on the specifics of your property. Something like a restaurant is probably not going to be acceptable in most regions. So you want to be mindful of that too, even if it's a home-based business. So hopefully that was helpful. You can like the video and subscribe if you want to see more of my content. I make videos on business management and business startup. And if you have any questions related to those topics, you can just leave a comment in the comment section below and I will respond to them.